Hello friends, my name is Arith Härger and today I'm going to talk about the historical background of the runes. Now, before we start with this, I would like to give a brief introduction to what the runes are. The runic alphabet is a set of symbols which identify the sounds of letters used in the languages spoken by the Germanic and Scandinavian peoples. The runic alphabet is called the Futhark, and this word is composed exactly by the first 6 letters of this alphabet. People often link the runes with the Vikings, which of course is correct, but the Vikings or the Viking Age is during the 8th century and the 11th century. That is the European medieval age, and the symbols of the runes go back in time a lot of centuries, in fact a millennium ago. The Vikings indeed spread the knowledge of the runes because it was a time where people recorded history. But before that, like any written form, it evolves. So the runic symbols actually come from the Bronze Age. And that's exactly what I will talk about today. We will go back in time 1,500 years before our Common Era, during the Middle Bronze Ages. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of images to better illustrate what I'm about to say. For a better understanding. The first image is a chart I've made with the symbols that identify the sounds of letters from 4 different civilizations that are North Germanic and go back in history into a time way before the Vikings. I will submit this chart in my Facebook page so you can check it out later. As you can see, the symbols are quite similar to the runes. Now, let's start with the first column, with the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were a civilization of Semitic origins from the Fertile Crescent in the easternmost coastline of the Mediterranean Sea. They were a maritime trading culture spreading all over the Mediterranean between the 16th century and the 5th century before our Common Era. The Phoenicians came in contact with the Greeks and the Minoans. In fact, the very first European naval battle was fought between Greeks and Phoenicians.
Ha, you bastard!
The Phoenicians wanted to control the Mediterranean trading routes by closing the westernmost maritime route, the Pillars of Hercules, nowadays called the Strait of Gibraltar, and the Hellespont, nowadays Istanbul, which allowed trading between the Mediterranean civilizations with the Northern Europe. The trading connections helped in the development of the new form of writing for the better understanding and communication between civilizations. Now, let's go to the second column, to the Minoans. Like the Phoenicians, it was a Bronze Age civilization from the Isles of Crete. They came in contact with the Phoenicians, obviously, but there is no telling which form of writing influenced who. As you can see in the chart I've made, there are a lot of similarities between the two forms of writing. Now to the third column, the Tartessian Language. The cultural area of the Tartessos was in the south of the Iberian Peninsula, nowadays Andalusia, Spain. Tartessos developed during the final centuries of the Bronze Age and the first centuries of the Iron Age. The first writing system to arrive at the southern coast of the Iberian Peninsula was brought by the Phoenicians at their arrival during the 8th century before our Common Era. Tartessos was the most important area of the Iberian Peninsula at this time. It was the area where different cultures connected and had created a new civilization. Tartessos results from the contact between the indigenous populations of the late Bronze Age of the Iberian Peninsula with the civilizations of traders coming from the east, which are the Phoenicians and the Greeks. Later, during the 4th century before our Common Era, Tartessos also had a great Celtic influence coming from the northern parts of the peninsula. Now the last column, the Iberians. Suffice to say, these were the indigenous people of the Iberian Peninsula who had maintained trading connections with every other European civilization since the Epipaleolithic, which means 10,000 years before our Common Era. I've shown you 4 different civilizations and what they had in common or similar, their form of writing. 4 different civilizations from the Bronze Age, way before the Viking Age. So how this form of writing reach the north? It's actually very simple. By maritime and inland waterways in the east and overland from the westernmost lands of Europe all the way to the Baltic Sea. As I have told you, these European inland connections go back to the Epipaleolithic and possibly way before that. So it's completely normal that these forms of writing were not brought by the Phoenicians, but it was an evolution in the Greek and Minoans territory, and then it spread inland through the connections of these European civilizations. Before the runes came to be what we know today, there was a great evolution in these symbols. The runes aren't an exclusive form of writing from the Scandinavian peoples. In fact, the runes, or these symbols that became the runes later in history, actually were a form of writing in all over Europe. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and all the links to my social media can be seen on the description. If you want to see more videos, please subscribe and comment. Tell me what you want to know, and I will try to make a video out of it. Farewell friends, and see you on the next video.